Hey everybody, this is John and welcome to the free video. So I want to take a look at a couple of things here. We've had some weird movement in some of the asset classes. So for gold on the daily chart, we do have a squeeze setting up. I've been watching to see if the squeeze could trigger along. The last 2 days though, we've seen some selling into the end of the month. And so I do have a question if this is end of month kind of jockeying, because we have seen that happening in the tech sector, and if it's the same for gold. So I will be watching this to see if this momentum can shift and if it turns into a buy. You can see that it's been fairly much contained between its 1 and 2 ATR levels away from the mean, and we are down here at 1 ATR, which lines up with the lower Bollinger Band and the squeeze. So I am looking at nibbling on some gold at these levels. On other asset classes, if we look at bonds, you can see the same thing. Kind of some weird asset allocation going on the last 2 days of the month. Bonds also down, okay? And while stocks were up, we've seen stocks like, XLK got hammered yesterday and kind of had a little bit of a dead cat bounce today. The financials have just been taking off, and consumer discretionary has been taking off. And so this has been more part of that end of month, shuffling the card deck around a little bit and getting positioned. So as we go into tomorrow, what are some of the things that I like? Well, I like some of the stocks that have been beaten down. And then I also like some of the stocks here like energy, which have not experienced much in the terms of inflows, but are starting to shape up. And you can see here on the put call ratio, there's a bunch of people buying puts here. Typically when that happens, they are dead wrong, i.e., hey, let's get a bunch of puts here. I think it's going to go down, right? So I like that for EOG, as well as keeping an eye on NVIDIA here. This also, along with tech and the semis, got hit hard in this end of month shuffling, and we're down here at some very solid buy points, and we're going to be keeping an eye on these for tomorrow. From there, I'm also keeping an eye on the euro, and the euro here, of course, has been kind of gearing up for a big move. The question is what happens if this thing pops up? I would look at that as being overall bullish for stocks. And last but not least, also, of course, Bitcoin, which has been a lot of fun. GBTC, I've traded this a couple times. I prefer just trading the actual Bitcoin itself, although this one is fairly fun. Continuing to watch this more and more, and of course, we'll be heavily trading the Bitcoin futures when they come out. But I would like to see if we can get back to the 8-period moving average here on this, and then I'd be looking at that to use to buy into Bitcoin. All right, and this kind of brings up too, what about, different things that we can do for squeezes on something like Bitcoin? All right, so a couple of things here I also want to talk about, because a lot of the questions I'm getting right now about this market is, do we keep buying the dip, or is there something bigger at play? So what are some of the tools that we can use to look at that? So one of the most important things I've found is when the markets either get a little frothy to the upside or uncertain is multiple squeezes, multiple squeezes, multiple squeezes. So here we have the monthly, weekly, 4-day, 3-day, 2-day, daily, 4-hour, 2-hour, 1 hour, and 30-minute. And when you see that squeezes line up on multiple of these time frames at the same time, you tend to get the best moves. Okay, but of course it's hard to look at all those different charts. All right, so a new tool that Eric has put together makes this a lot easier. So he's developed this where you can just look at one time frame, and then in the upper left hand corner you can see squeezes on all those other time frames. So for example, on gold futures you've got a squeeze on the monthly chart, 2-day chart, daily chart, and 30-minute chart. That's telling me that a big move is starting to set up here because it's setting up on multiple time frames, including some of the bigger ones and some of those hidden ones like those 2- and 3-day ones, which are very powerful. And in fact, if you like to day trade, you can actually, it's up to, you could look at 18 charts. So here's the monthly chart, all, weekly, 3-day, then you got the 2-hour, the 20-minute, the 15-minute, and the 5, and the 4, and the 3, and the 2, and the 1. And if you're looking at all these, like if you're trying to day trade the NASDAQ futures or Tesla, that can just be an eyesore to look at. Okay, and so you can do the same thing with even this many charts and just condense it into one. So here is GBTC. So I've got a 1-minute chart here, and you can see on the 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, all the way through the monthly, this thing has been so volatile. There's no squeezes anywhere. Okay, but if you bring up Tesla, And then you can see it's like, wow, this thing has got squeezes on the daily, 4-hour, 30-minute, 20-minute, 15, et cetera, et cetera. And then if I'm looking at the NASDAQ futures as they're setting up overnight, we've got squeezes on the 30, 20, you know, on the smaller time frames there. So there's some action, some tradable action setting up there. And so this is something I found extremely useful for finding those kind of bigger hidden moves. But when you've got, you know, look, a squeeze by itself, I love a squeeze, right? But when you have like 4 squeezes setting up or 6 squeezes setting up, and especially on time frames, which I don't normally watch, I don't watch 3-day and 2-day charts or 4-day charts and 20-minute charts, and I don't have enough time to watch all these. But if I can see all these at a glance, that gives me a ton of data that I can use to make trading decisions. So if you think that tool is as cool as I think it's been, I mean, it's fairly amazing in terms of being able to condense all of that information onto one screen and give you all of that decision-making ability at a glance, whether it's these big time frames like monthly and weekly chart setting up, or whether it's these hidden time frames that I never watch, the 4 and the 3 and the 2-day, or you've got some early warning signals setting up on the 5, 15, and 20, or if you like to day trade. It's amazing being able to have all the data on all those time frames at a glance. If you're interested in this indicator is going to be included in a class coming up on Saturday, December 16th. Okay, in this class, it's going to be focusing on it's called the haystack ETF method. So that indicator, call it finding a needle in a haystack. I'm going to spend 4 hours talking about that tool, how I use it. Very simple if you're a newer trader, you know, beginning trader to option, you know, beginning options trading and stuff like that. You just buy calls, buy puts. You can buy the stock itself. You can buy ETFs. You can use it on Bitcoin ETFs, Bitcoin futures, all this kind of fun stuff. And so the Saturday class for $497 will include the class itself, how to use it, and various specific exit and entry strategies for using this tool, and of course it includes the tool itself. Also, if you're newer, there'll be an ETF options basic guide, just options in general. This is a call, this is a put, etc. There's some other stuff here in the more live trading and advanced section, and some more hedging stuff. And if you're interested in that, I would encourage you to watch a webinar. I'm doing it tonight. You can watch the replay, but I think most people I know will look at that multi-squeeze tool and say, I have got to have that. So if you go to simplertrading.com/ETF, again, the class will be December 16th. You're going to love the tool, and it's going to set us up for some pretty awesome setups in December and as well as for 2018. All right, you guys have a awesome evening, and I'll see you at the next update.